philosopher once wrote,
naughty, naughty, very naughty.
So hello YouTube, how you doing? Pommy Biker here. Just want to show you some upgrades that I've done on the old bicycle. I've basically put on some racing clip-ons. As you can see here, there's no handlebars. Those holes there are where the handlebars used to be. And that's made this bike feel like a totally different bike. It feels like an absolute weapon now. It's got all the characteristics of my old Super Sport 125, you know. It's so much more flicky, so much more responsive, and it's not just the clip-ons that have done that. I like the way it's distributed my weight on the front forks. If I used to give the bike a little bit of throttle or some hard throttle, what would happen is the front wheel would lift off a little bit and skim across the surface of the road, you know, doing a mini wheelie. And because the weight isn't on the front, that means I've got effectively no control over the steering. Because the clip-ons are slung far more forward, the weight is here. The weight used to be around here on the handlebars, but now the weight is here, pushing down in the front of the fork. It keeps the front wheel so much more planted having clip-ons. And so now when I give it throttle, I can still steer. The rubber's still on the road. And yeah, I like that. That's given me some stability. It's sacrificing on comfort though. My handlebars were really cruisy, but I wasn't after a cruisy bike. CB400's got so many characteristics that make it a bit of a street fighter. I wanted to go more towards the street fighter look and feel, as opposed to the more friendlier everyday CB400 that it's well known for as well. So I think I've achieved that by adding these clip-ons. It looks, you know, great. I'm gonna put a picture up of that now. You can see how it flicks so well because of the angles of the clip-ons and how low they are on the fork. Just everything feels more stable, more solid, just more like a weapon really of destruction. And so the weight's good, but that isn't the only thing I've done. The clip-ons are visible. I've got an invisible upgrade here, and one that I'm recommending to everyone right now is I've upgraded the suspension springs. The sag, which is a formula for how much the suspension should react to a rider's weight. You know, if you've got the right sag, then when you sit on the bike, the suspension should only lower this much and then, you know, absorb this much under pressure, under speed. So sag is an important formula for any motorbike, and when you've got that set up correctly, the bike feels like a new bike, you know. So I've really sorted out the front end here. The clip-ons just make it responsive. I've got more feel, it's more flicky, it transfers my weight more into the front rubber. The suspension is not so soft. My preload was all the way in on the original suspension, and it was still so soft, like I'd sit on it and it would dip halfway down. Now when I sit on this, it doesn't move, but then it obviously starts moving when I'm braking under pressure. you know, or giving it some of this, it moves, but it's far less inclined to bottom out like it did before. So the suspension upgrade has given me so much more feel on the road. It is stiffer and these handlebars are lower. My wrists are taking more of a pounding than they were. I'm more leaned over the bike, but you know, I'm happy about that because I'm all about performance and feel and confidence. I've got a good set of rubber tyres. I've run Pirelli Angel GTs, so that's some good rubber right there. And with the suspension, I mean, you know, it's easy to get, you know, a power commander and a nice exhaust and put in some jet fuel to go faster, but do you really want to go faster if you don't have confidence in the bike being able to manage those speeds? I wouldn't want to. So, you know, it's easier for me to go faster now because the bike seems more able to do it. It seems more capable. Like I said, feels more like a weapon. And so, if the trick to really going faster is in the tyre rubber, it's in the suspension. Once all that stuff's configured up properly, it feels like a new bike, and you feel so much more capable. You've got so much more confidence. You know that if you push it a little bit harder, it will handle. Whereas, you know, before on the other suspension springs, I'll be taking a corner at a decent speed, and the suspension will already be, you know, close to bottoming out, and then if you add a little bit of braking, it will bottom out. Once the suspension bottoms out, then the rubber loses traction far quicker. ABS kicks in quicker. The suspension affects the whole bike. The front end is so important. So much happens at the front. You know, even though the rubber on the front tire is thinner than the back, that tyre is responsible for braking, turning. The forks are responsible for transferring the weight into the front of the bike. Like, what you don't want is super soft suspension, because if I just hammer on the front brake, all the weight goes to the front. The suspension isn't pushing back to transfer that weight backwards back onto the back wheel. So effectively, if I'm using the front brake and the back brake, I've only got one wheel really doing all the work, and that's the front, because the suspension isn't strong enough to push the weight back onto the back wheel. So if you guys are really serious about getting some performance out of your bike, check out suspension and a good set of tyres, because you won't go fast or have the confidence to go fast until that's all sorted. Now, a lot of bikes have good suspension, they come with good tyres. You guys are fortunate, you're probably not going to have to look at that, and you carry on with your business, get that power commander, get that exhaust. But there's a lot of bikes out here that could have better suspension. There's a lot of bikes out there that could have better tyres. So, you know, if you're still on the OEM tyres that came with the bike because the bike's new, you might not have very good tyres on. Tyres being the most important thing you could get for a bike. That is your contact between, you know, yourself and the road. So the rubber has to be fucking there for you. And then after that, suspension for transferring that weight, for your body weight, and handling the bike's weight properly, so it can transfer all the weight being shifted to the front back onto the back wheel. So I've got to say, the clip-ons changes the ride position, puts a bit more weight on the front for steering under good acceleration, which is good. It makes me lower to the road, I'm lower in and leaned over in the corners, so the clip-ons are great for that. Yeah, I've lost my comfort, but I'm happy about that, because like I said, I'm all about the performance and the feel and the feedback I get from the bike and the road, and I'm feeling much more of that now. But the suspension is the thing here. The suspension has changed this bike, and I totally recommend you look into that stuff and get that sorted. If you read some reviews and it's not that good, get it sorted. If you want an idea on price, suspension springs are around, you know, $200. It's about $200 labour to get it put in, with, you know, with the fork oil. And also bear in mind, if you know you haven't got a new bike and you've got a second-hand bike and it's done some kilometers, you might not have to upgrade the suspension. It could just be the fork oil that's worn down, it's dirty, it's past its sell-by date, or it's low, it needs topping up. So investigate your fork oil levels as well. That can drastically affect your suspension as well. So that's it really. I just want to add one more thing to CB400 owners that may be watching this video. I've seen some people raise the fork legs through, and what I mean by that is this is the triple tree and they've dropped the bike front end lower and the fork legs that stick out higher, 1 inch higher. So imagine they stick out like that, and then on that extra fork leg that they've pushed through, they've put the clip-ons there. You can do that, sure you can. But that affects a couple of things. It affects the strain on the stem and the headset bearings. It lowers, because you've pushed the fork legs through, it lowers the front bike. It lowers the front of the bike. So your exhaust headers are lower to the ground than they once were, less ground clearance. Under heavy braking, hitting a speed bump, you might hit them. Depends really. You have less ground clearance to climb up a curb, whatever. Another thing about having them there is it changes the rake of the steering angle, and that means it's more sensitive. It's a steeper angle and it's more, you know, it's more sensitive. And under speed, you know, at low speeds that'll feel good. It'll feel like a massive difference, but under high speeds, that's going to basically be less stable. You hit a pothole, and what will happen is, when you hit a pothole, if that rake's really sharp and twitchy, you'll wiggle, and the bike will be turning in places you don't want it to turn. You know, you'll just be reacting too fast for your reflexes. So you don't want to change the rake of the forks of the steering. And like I said, you know, it's going to have more strain on your headset bearings. So don't do that. Put the clip-ons underneath. That's how the fork was designed at the factory. Alright, that's it from me. Hope you learnt something there. And yeah. I know, I'll put in a little bonus clip, me being a hoon. See who responds. Oh yeah, I started that. I is a bad man. I is a gangster. This is my crew, you know. Oh, I didn't get a second one.